Is your fantasy football team 1-4 and in desperate need of a spark? Or better yet, maybe you're 5-0. Your team's sitting pretty. You're looking to stack your team for a deep playoff run. Well, across the board, 0-5, 5-0, it doesn't matter. If you've watched my videos before, you know I stick to three important components: take risks, make moves, and make trades, baby. And that's what our show tonight is about. We're going to talk three players to trade for, three players to sell. And I also, if you stick around long enough, I have some good stash prospects for you for those in shallow, deep, and medium-sized leagues. So welcome back to IDP Plus Trends. I'm Johnny. I'm at Johnny Freakin' F1 on Twitter. I am unavailable to have my co-host Steve with me tonight. So we will miss Steve, and sorry for the Mark Andrews and Micah Parsons. Those were two players he was going to talk about. My players are not on the thumbnail. So I'll keep you on your toes with this one. Going into it, we're going to go straight into my first buy, who I think you should be trading for. And this is a perfect situation, really for anything. If you're 0-5, this guy's going to help you win now. If you're 5-0, this guy's going to help you hopefully be a better team and a contender. And that's Josh Jacobs from the Packers. Josh Jacobs is notoriously a slow starter in his career so far with Green Bay and Vegas before. Really struggles the last couple of weeks, last week 3 through 5. But before that, weeks 1 and 2, he was solid. You know, those first 2 weeks ran for 235 rushing yards just in those 2 weeks. And then weeks 3, 4, and 5, only 165 combined rushing yards in those 3 games. So really has taken a step down. But you know what's important is in the last 2 weeks, he's had 5 catches on 7 targets. So his involvement, his volume has not disappeared. Somebody might be frustrated. They might be thinking, they drafted a top 5 or 6 back, and he has not produced that. Well, they'd be correct. But at the same time, for the future, I do think that Josh Jacobs is somebody who's going to improve on the stats he's, provided so far. Like I said, he's notoriously a slow starter. The volume's there. He still had 98 touches, which over 5 games is almost 20. He's averaging 20 touches a game. So the recipe's right. I'm going to attribute a little bit of this, slow mishap these last 3 weeks due to the fact that they've had bad luck with injuries. I mean, their quarterback went down for a couple weeks. That threw things in a funk. He's had some tough matchups too. So Josh Jacobs, to me, like I said, he starts slow, not only this year, but years prior. I'm willing to throw that out the window. The 120, 130-yard rushing games, I believe, are coming. He has really no competition. It's not like Marshawn Lloyd is, breathing down his neck for the starting spot, or that, Jacobs himself has stalled that much, because he's been pretty efficient so far. This week he gets a great week 6 matchup with Arizona. Arizona is giving the 7th most points to running backs right now. And for me, I mean, he's a safe play this week. He's a safe play down the line. He has a bye week in week 10. So even if you're maybe 2-3 and you still need to kind of win now, or 1-4 and you're really got guts and you're really going for it, like, I think Josh Jacobs is a good get, because he doesn't have that bye week until later. So to me, that's, not what you're focusing on, but it's a nice little sprinkle on top, So Josh Jacobs, 1-5 to 5-0, I think is very in play here for a good trade. And owners might have a little bad taste in their mouth right now that you need to take advantage of. So Josh Jacobs is the number one buy to get, not in any particular order, but the first guy I will mention. And the second guy, another running back, and this guy's on buy. It's a little bit intriguing. To me, a team might be 1-4 and have this guy, and you might be sitting pretty at 4-1. Send a player or 2-3 players to help that team win now to get this player. And it's Devin Achane, man, from, the Miami Dolphins. Bottom line, we know Tua's been hurt. Weeks 1 and 2 when Tua was there, Achane was as advertised, 32 rushes actually, so an average of 16 a game, which is a little high. He did have 120 yards, which is awfully impressive, with a rushing touchdown, and more importantly, 14 receptions on 14 targets for 145 yards with a touchdown. So we're looking at a guy, all-purpose yards, over 130 yards the first 2 weeks, scored touchdowns in both of those games. I mean, so that's what I'm looking at right here. And you know what? Like, without Tua weeks 3, 4, and 5, yeah, he's had 24 rushes for 63 yards, not even averaging 3 yards a carry, only 7 catches. which is a lot for running backs. But when you average, 7 a game and you only get 7 in three games with 41 yards, is not going to cut it. So again, this is somebody who owners might have a bad taste in their mouth. He got concussed, which for better or for worse, maybe an owner saying that, oh, he didn't get his points because he got concussion. You never know. The other owner could be saying, he's probably going to get hurt again. He's already hurt. It's week 5. He was hurt last week. I need to sell house or move on because he's not durable. So I think that's something to take advantage of here. I mean, nobody's durable in the NFL. It's a tough game. If you watch it, like, the hits are crazy. Anyone can, you can get off the bus, go into a game and get hurt. So I'm not really looking at the injury factor. As a matter of fact, I mean, how I'd mentioned before, picking him off a team that's 1-4, that team needs, if you're 1-4, you need to win now. Maybe if you're 2-3 and you're being level with yourself and your team's not that good, you still need to win now. So there are teams out there that are kind of in desperation mode already. Here we are in week 6, and I think you can take advantage of that. So again, Devin Achane is on bye this week in week 6. Some people might say that's a hurt. I can't use him that week. Well, hopefully, if you're 1-4, you're probably not trading for Achane. If you are, hats off to you. You really got some guts. But to me, as much as it's a bye week, you're not going to have Achane this week. To me, it's like, hey, if I'm a team that I'm a contender, I know I'm going to be in the playoffs when it's all said and done. Hey, let him sit this week. I don't need him this week. I'm still going to get by. I'm still going to win. And I know that next week he's going to be healthy, right? If he played this week, nothing's guaranteed next week. But next week he's had the bye. He's healed from his concussion, hopefully, and he's good to go. So you not only help yourself for right now, not this week, but next, but also hopefully he has to play less games to make good on that. And Achane has been pretty injury prone, so only has to get 8 or 9 more good games for you this season to make good. So I think, again, if you're 4-1 and there's a team out there 1-4 who needs players, and you have depth like Wan'Dale Robinson and kind of like those wide receiver 3, running back 3 players that can help that team win now, poach Devin Achane. And I think he's going to, this is the perfect storm. He had the concussion. He's going into bye week. It doesn't matter. He was inefficient the last 2 weeks. Who wasn't? Tyreek Hill, Waddle, the whole offense was. So I think, like, if somebody really looks at the points, stat block, the box score, they might have a bad taste in their mouth. I know it's a big name, but hey, and the bottom line is you can always send a trade. The worst someone can say is no. So keep firing them out there. And also, if you're 1-4, maybe you have Achane, and it's time now to be level with yourself and say, it's time to win. I need to sell him, and you maximize profits. So Achane, another solid get as a buy. And then finally, my last buy, moving to the wide receiver, but staying on the same team, and that's Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill. And to me, again, looking at Tua, that is a huge thing that we know that, like, Tua is not supposed to be back until week 8. So theoretically, you're looking at week 6 and week 7 at least. You're not going to have Tua, which means Tyreek Hill is not going to be a top 5 play. And then maybe for some reason in week 8, Tua is not available yet. That'd be 3 weeks now that you still haven't had Tua paired with Tyreek Hill. So again, if you're sitting pretty, you're 3-2, you're 4-1, and you're seeing a team that's 1-4 or 2-3 that needs some help. Hopefully that manager is being level with himself and saying, I need to do something because this one player isn't going to win me at all. And I think that could be the case with Tyreek Hill. He's obviously the team's first round pick. So he is their best player. But at the same time, if they need to win now, send them a trade. Send them 3 players that are going to help them win this week or the next couple weeks. And in 2 or 3 weeks, Tyreek Hill is going to pay off. So those are my 3 buys: Josh Jacobs, Devin Achane, and Tyreek Hill. And before moving on to my sells, I wanted to mention right now, IDP Plus website, we are running a promo. So go to idpplus.com/memberships and start your season off right. Well, it's week 6. So keep continuing your season going well with IDP Plus subscription. Get 20% off any subscription for a limited time with the promo code PROPS and get access to our tools, our data, IDP articles, and don't miss out on our subscriber Discord. So once again, go to our website, idpplus.com/membership. And then when you check out, use the promo code PROPS to redeem your 20% off site-wide. So moving back into our sells now. I have 3 of them. This is, to me, when I look at buys and sells, I'm not really trying to buy a player. that's at the peak value that I have to pay so much for, like Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson is a great player if you got him on waivers, but he's posted, nine target games, 7 receptions, like double digits in multiple games. I'm not really advertising him as a buy because the value is too high. So keep that in mind. With my sells, it's all about value here. If the player has no value, I'm not going to talk about them. Or if their value is so high, I'm probably not going to mention them. But I do have one surprise in here for you. So for my first sell, I have running back J.K. Dobbins, which hopefully you got out already. This was a backfield. Me personally, I thought Kimani Vidal was going to win it, was going to beat J.K. Dobbins. Didn't think he had enough in the tank. Gus Edwards last year in Baltimore, his efficiency was down. So I thought maybe he proved that he can't be that full-time 3-down back. So I thought it was going to be Vidal. So I was 0 for 1 so far on this. But I did think if it came down to Dobbins or Edwards, that Dobbins was going to be the guy, just based on explosiveness, based on how heralded he was as a running back coming out of college, the draft stock. So J.K. Dobbins was not somebody who I completely wrote off, but I thought he was going to play second fiddle. Turns out the first couple games, he killed it. He had week 1 and week 2, 27 attempts for 266 yards with 2 rushing touchdowns, and just for good measure, 4 receptions, which the 4 receptions were for 4 yards. So if you're not in a PPR league, you're discounting that 100%. But, even if you're in a PPR league, he's not a complete zero in that factor. He can catch some balls out of the backfield, even though it's not going to be with volume. But really, the last 2 weeks, he was on last week on week 5, he was on bye. So really, we're looking at week 3 and 4. The last 2 times he took the field, a combined 29 attempts for 76 yards with no touchdowns. So the efficiency that we talked about in the first 2 weeks has been sapped. So right now the value has been pretty low. So hopefully you've already sold, but there's still people in the bye weeks that are 1 and 4 that don't have the depth that J.K. Dobbins still can have some good flavor to that team. So to me, I think his value's down, but you might have a owner out there that looks at this and says, you know what, he had his bye week last week. He's coming back healthy. He was coming off an injury. He's going to get a breather to say. I just don't think that's the case. I was absolutely shocked when J.K. Dobbins did what he did, rush for over 130 yards per game, those first 2 games. I thought that was insane. And that's why I sold him in a couple leagues. But yeah, here we are. This is the reality set in. And who knows, maybe J.K. Dobbins can continue to have a great season and get back to where he was week 1 and week 2. But I'm not willing to bet on it. Keep in mind, Kimani Vidal, and you'll hear his name later in the show. Kimani Vidal didn't get much love, didn't get many touches, was inactive for a couple games early on in the season. But now we have running backs. We have Gus Edwards, who is deemed out for week 6. We have a struggling J.K. Dobbins. If you look at history of rookies, usually they kind of get an uptick in usage after the bye week. They learn the playbook better. They become more veterans, so to say, even though they're rookies, they just have more experience under their belt. So to me, I think Kimani Vidal is somebody who's going to disrupt this J.K. Dobbins, wholesale. I don't think it's just going to be him. I think Vidal is going to get mixed in. Maybe I'm wrong about Vidal, but to me, bottom line, I just don't trust J.K. Dobbins to do what he did when he had those big games, and that was just a couple weeks ago. Just ride off in the sunset with him. Get what you can now. Again, send an offer. The worst somebody can say is no. So hopefully you're sitting at maybe 3 and 2. You have a plethora of running backs, and you can pair J.K. Dobbins up with another wide receiver to get you a better wide receiver or something like that. So hopefully you're not relying on J.K. Dobbins. But if you are, I understand. He had those 2 big weeks, and the Chargers like to run the ball a lot. No Edwards this week, so it might be a good week 6 play, but I doubt the longevity of this one. So J.K. Dobbins to me is a sell. For the big surprise one, my second guy, had to keep you on your toes, is Tank Bigsby. So listen, I get it. He's been terrific. Now, hear me out. If I had depth at running back, which I do in a couple leagues, which is why I am thinking of it in this way, Tank Bigsby, say if I have 3 or 4 starting, solid fantasy RB1s, RB2s, maybe even a flex play. To me, like Tank Bigsby is not that important. I understand the huge potential. This is a guy who had a 65-yard touchdown. He had a 19-yard touchdown. He had a catch for 28 yards. Like, this is a certified walking bomb. But at the same time, what if we see the old Tank Bigsby that we saw when he was a rookie? I get it. Like, rookie, he grew. I get it. You got to think of the negatives, though. We also hear Coach Peterson still endorsing Etienne as the RB1 in wake of the big game that Tank Bigsby had, the 2-touchdown performance. Peterson was quoted saying that it was a good game for Tank. Etienne is still our guy. Again, it was a nice game for Tank, which leads me to believe they're both going to be involved. Etienne is no scrub. This is not a guy who's like tail end of his career. This is a guy coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing yard seasons, and to me, a great receiving back. So I cannot, write Etienne off. Of course, Tank Bigsby has been huge. 34 carries for 273 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns this year. That's an average of 8 yards per carry. It's astronomical. You've heard me talk up Keaton Mitchell. He had 7.8 yards per carry last year, led the league. This would top it, So on one hand, maybe Tank Bigsby is somebody you're buying. You might have a zero running back strategy, whether by choice or by nature, and Tank Bigsby is the best you can get. But keep in mind, if you're trying to trade for Tank Bigsby, whoever has him saying, oh, he's going to take over Etienne, he's going to be our RB1, he's going to be an RB1 for fantasy. That's the expectation now. And to me, I think that's a little bit unrealistic. Again, we have Etienne still there. He was taken off the injury report. He's going to play week 6. Maybe Tank Bigsby does outtouch Etienne, but still, like, Tank Bigsby, what the perception is about his potential and what reality is, I don't know if those two things align. So I think really the community is really putting Tank Bigsby as a top 24 running back, putting him on this pedestal. And again, the potential is there. Maybe he could be, all it takes is one injury to Etienne, and that's it. And Tank Bigsby a walking bomb the rest of the season. But it's no shoe-in. Jacksonville passes the ball awfully a lot. And this goes both ways with Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby is like, if they do pass the ball a lot and he runs really well, then he should be the guy, because it really bonds together well. It brings a good overall balance. But at the same time, again, Etienne can rush, can receive. So I don't think there's ever going to be a point in time, unless barring injury, that Tank Bigsby is a 3-down back. I think this is still going to be maybe first and second down, and Etienne get passing work. So again, reality check on Tank Bigsby. I understand he's a great smash play. He has got a great matchup. In the sense of running against Chicago, when their defense throwing the ball has been stellar. So maybe this is, the stars align, and maybe you wait one more week until he does blow up this week, and then you trade him for even more, or you just want to, wait it out and see if he takes Etienne's job. But bottom line, if you're 3-2, maybe if you're 4-1 and you have 4 or 5 solid running backs, and there's somebody out there that you never know. Again, send a trade. The worst they can say is no. You don't know how high they value Tank Bigsby. And if he's not even a flex player, if he's a bench player for you, he's worth more to somebody else. So maybe you do get like an Achane or a Chiron. I'm not saying Tank Bigsby by himself for one is going to get you that. But maybe you throw in something else. Maybe you have a second tight end that they need a tight end. So now things start to make sense, with Tank Bigsby trading him. Again, the value right now is so high. It could come down, twice as low next week. Depends on what Etienne does. Depends on what Tank Bigsby does. So, this is a chance if you can get out right now on top. I think that's definitely where you're going to be at. So Tank Bigsby, to me, it can go both ways. I get it. Again, he's been terrific. But there's a owner right out there right now who's has those 4 or 5 running backs that is listening to what I'm saying and saying, Johnny, you make some sense. So that's what I've done in leagues. I have Tank Bigsby. I have plethora of running backs. I'm trying to stack up my wide receivers. I have a lack of. So, it makes sense for me. So it might make sense for you too. And finally, my last guy, as far as a sell, is a little bit less value, I feel like, in the community. But Allen Lazard right now, if you're in a PPR league, he's the 23rd ranked wide receiver. He's over Brandon Ayuk, he has more points than Terry McLaurin, more points than Tyreek Hill, Zay Flowers, Chris Olave, Christian Kirk. The list continues to go on. It's been a weird season, ladies and gentlemen. So weird that Allen Lazard is our 23rd best wide receiver. And if you're in a half PPR or standard league, to me, Allen Lazard is a sexier play and even better of a sell. But PPR, I think, is a little bit of his downfall. He has 20 receptions in those 5 games, so he's averaging 4. He does have 33 targets in those 5 games, so over 6 targets per game, but just not making enough volume to me to warrant holding on hope to and repeating this performances week in and week out that he's been doing. You've been blessed so far if you've had Allen Lazard on your team. Let's be real. And unless you're like hanging on by a thread and you really need him, I think there are teams out there with bye weeks that he's a little bit more valuable to. Again, 23rd wide receiver so far. Again, too. I mean, what's their guarantee? Mike Williams is getting healthier. Maybe he cuts into his snap. His target share. A guy named Devontae Adams, who is on the trade block right now, could come to New York and really screw things up. And the bottom line is the Jets just lost their head coach. We know play calling duties are shifting. So to me, it's like there's a bunch of questions in New York right now. You saw the old Lazard and Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay, and you've got that in people's minds. Just ride off in the sunset right now while you're on top and sell it. I don't think you're listening and hearing me and watching this right now, thinking that he will end as the 23rd wide receiver. We all know he's going to come falling down at some point. So again, get out right now while it's hot and make a nice return on Allen Lazard. And again, probably not somebody who has a lot of value. Might take a package deal. Somebody who needs a flex and a tight end. Now you give him Lazard, you give him Tucker Kraft, and maybe you get Travis Kelce on bye. So that's what we're looking at here. But Allen Lazard, I don't think he's going to carry that much volume going forward. Get out now while you can. That is it for my sells. Once again, they were J.K. Dobbins, Tank Bigsby, and Allen Lazard. So right now, we are going into week 6, which means we have 4 important teams on bye. A bunch of news in the NFL as far as injuries, a bunch of injury news that will determine what our lineups will look like. So this is all fluid. But going into the weekend right now, I think some good stash plays. No matter if you're in deep or shallow leagues or anywhere in between. I'm going to rattle off. I got 6 guys that I want to make a quick case for. Coming back to him, I had mentioned before, my number one guy, in my opinion, and it doesn't go by own percentage, it doesn't go by needs to be rostered, but I do believe in Kimani Vidal. I do think that this is a rookie who had his bye week now. J.K. Dobbins has been inefficient for the last couple games. The juice maybe finally wore off there. Maybe he's wearing down. No Gus Edwards, so maybe Hassan Haskins gets the snaps, but come on now. I think Kimani Vidal, they drafted him for a reason. This is a guy we really liked not too long ago in the preseason. So I think Kimani Vidal, especially if you're in a deeper league, needs to be rostered. Another guy in a similar situation is Audric Estime. Another rookie that we liked coming into the season. It's a tough reality for Estime. They have Javonte Williams and McLaughlin in Denver. So to me, this is a timeshare. I don't think he's officially been activated from IR. I think he still is, but that's just, to me, a technicality. I do expect him to get some touches in week 6. Don't know how many that's going to be, what he's going to do with it. But I do know that on the season as a whole, Javonte Williams and McLaughlin, even though they've picked it up, has struggled with efficiency. So maybe it's goal line duties. Maybe it's a true opportunity for Estime. This is a guy that Sean Payton drafted, right? So talking about Javonte, Sean Payton did not draft. So maybe that's, in the back of his mind too. So again, nothing's guaranteed, but I think if I had to pick one of these two, I'm taking Vidal, one of these 2 rookies. Vidal is my choice, but Estime I don't think is far off. I think he's a fine dart throw, not as a starter, but as a bench player if you're in a deep league. Moving on, another guy who I continue to say to stash, who led the league in yards per carry last year, is my boy Keaton Mitchell. Again, Keaton Mitchell is not owned enough. I believe it's under 15% of Yahoo leagues is Keaton owned. Listen, we know by this point, based on news that came last week, that he's going to be out until probably November at this point. So again, if you're 1-4, you're not stashing Keaton Mitchell. You need that spot. But maybe you're 3-2 with a solid team, one of the best teams. Maybe you're 5-0. Like, that's your guy at this point. Keaton Mitchell, when we see guys that are being picked up, whether it be second or third string running backs, and guys, if you're in a league with return yard leagues, you're looking at guys like DJ Dallas, Raheem Blackshear. Like, this is slim pickings in some leagues. So I think Keaton Mitchell really, I'm not saying that first game back he supplants Derrick Henry. That's not the case, but don't forget about him. Kind of that Achane, that Tank Bigsby, what he's been. That was Keaton Mitchell last year, and I do expect him to be a key player at some point this year. So Keaton Mitchell, a great stash. Next is I have a wide receiver, Quentin Johnston. At this point, the community, we think that Ladd McConkey's the number one in LA, and that's fine. I'm not here to debate that, but I do know that Quentin Johnston has the ability to make big plays. Kind of reminds me of like Mike Williams there, just the way they kind of look and the way they play. Big guy, can make splashes in the red zone. That's kind of been his mantra so far, or those red zone, those touchdowns. So I think if he can kind of get some additional yardage, some more volume. We all know that LA wants to run the ball, but when you're losing and it's not working, you're not being efficient running the ball, you've got to throw it. So I think Quentin Johnston, especially if you're in a deeper league, there's some appeal there, especially if you can get a touchdown. You can trade him next week on a high note or look to continue the pace. But I think Quentin Johnston is a little bit undervalued right now based on bad recent performance in the bye week. Next guy who I think needs to really jump in owned percentage is Jalen Polk. I mean, we've read about this before. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett wasn't fit to make that offense excel. And now we're looking at Drake May finally coming in. And that was the writing on the wall. That's what we heard in the preseason. Like, once, Drake May gets with Jalen Polk, his value is going to spike. Some people have forgot about that. Some people don't think it matters which quarterback is in. I don't know, frankly, but I'm willing to take that gamble, especially in a deeper league, and especially if I have the room. So Jalen Polk, let's see what he's about. He's leading the team as far as snap percentage. So to me, like, the opportunity is going to be there, and I'm willing to take that gamble, especially in a deeper league. So Jalen Polk needs to spike. And finally, this guy's going into his bye week, and similar to talking about Kimani Vidal, who's coming out of his bye week, rookies a lot of the time assume more usage, more snaps, more carries in this case with a running back, Blake Corum, as the season progresses, and especially coming out of that bye. So Blake Corum is going into the bye this week. If you can afford to drop somebody and not have Blake Corum this week, maybe you don't have him next week because he doesn't get many touches. But hey, Kyron Williams is a guy who a lot of us thought would be injured by now, and maybe Corum doesn't get that shot, but maybe he does get more volume and kind of gives Kyron that little break here and then in games, and maybe can be a goal line back, maybe can really oversee expectations with Kyron healthy. So Blake Corum, especially if you're in a league where running backs are really thin. I know he hasn't got the snaps so far, he hasn't got the touches, but that's great. That's just what the doctor ordered, because that means he's available and he's free. So this is a good time to take the shot on Blake Corum. I'd rather roster him than like Trey Benson, some other backup running backs. I think Blake Corum has a high ceiling, especially if that Kyron injury happens. So those are my stashes. Those are my buys. Those are my sells. Thank you for tuning in to IDP Plus Trends. If you have any responses, reactions, questions, please leave them in our comments section. And we will see you next time real soon on IDP Plus Trends.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.